What's going on, Yu-Gi-Oh fans? PlotArmorCards in the house, and today I'm going to be coming to you with my Tearlaments deck profile post-Magnificent Mavens. Now, before we get started, if you feel I've earned it, please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing, as it does help out the channel in terms of being able to reach more people and spreading the good word on my channel, right? So, of course, let's go ahead and get into it now. So, first of all, I like to play Tearlaments Shiren at 3. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. I suck at pronunciations. During your main phase, you can special summon this card from your hand. If you do, send one monster from your hand to the graveyard. Then send the top 3 cards of the deck to the grave. So the way this deck works, if you don't know, is you want to be dumping cards from the deck to the grave as much as possible, because of the fact that that in turn will trigger off your Tearlaments fusions. For example, where to go? All right, there it is. If this card is sent to the graveyard by card effect, except during the damage tab, you can fusion summon a fusion monster from your extra deck by placing fusion materials mentioned on it from your hand field at graveyard, including this card from your graveyard and the bottom of the deck in any order. So, works really, really well. The ability to mill is necessary in this deck. So, next I like to play triple copies of Tearlaments Rhino Heart. This card is normal or special summon. You can send one Tearlaments monster from your deck to the graveyard, except Tearlaments Rhino Heart. If this card is sent to the graveyard by card effect, you can special summon this card, but banish it when it leaves the field. And then if you do, send one Tearlaments card from your hand to the graveyard. Additionally, you can only use each effect once per turn. Alright, so next we have ourselves Tearlaments Mavens. So Mavens works really, really well as well. So if your your opponent activates a monster effect on the field, quick effect, you can special summon this card from your hand. If you do, send the top 3 cards of your deck to the grave. So it works insanely well, the ability to just manipulate and then interrupt, right? So that does work really nice. Plus, it does have the effect where if it's sent to the graveyard, then you can fusion summon from your extra deck by placing fusion monsters from the hand field in our graveyard, including this card at the bottom of the deck. So works really nice. Lastly, Tearlaments Merely. So I do like this card as well. If this card is normal summon, you can send the top 3 cards of your deck to the grave. So insane already. Plus, it does have that fusion ability that the other ones have as well. Next, we're moving on to the brand new Kelbeck cards. I really, really like this cards. Or not the Kelbeck, the brand new Earth Fairy cards. This card specifically is called Kelbeck. My apologies. And this card is crazy, because if this card is sent from the hand or deck to your opponent's graveyard, except during the damage step, you can target one special summon monster your opponent controls, special summon this card from your hand, and return that monster to the hand. So it's a hand trap with some interruption. Plus, if this card is sent from the hand or deck to the graveyard, you can activate this effect. Each player sends the top 5 cards of their deck to the graveyard, or their entire deck if less than 5. Then if you exchange your spirits in your graveyard, you can set one trap from your graveyard. So this card is insane and a must-have for this brand new deck. This is crazy. Next, I like to play triple copies of Yugioh, the Ancient Centennial. If a card is sent from the hand or deck to your opponent's graveyard, except during the damage step, you can special summon this card from your hand. Then you can special summon one level 4 Earth Fairy monster from your graveyard, except Yugioh, the Ancient Centennial. Works really, really well, that ability. But I like the second ability a little bit more. If this card is sent from the hand or deck to the graveyard, you can activate this effect. Each player sends the top 5 cards of their deck to the graveyard, or their entire deck if less than 5. So it works really, really well with Foolish Burial. And then if Exchange of the Spirit is in your grave, you can send the top 5 cards. You can send 5 more cards from the top of either player's deck to the graveyard. So the way these fairies work in general is just they work really, really well. Not only milling your own deck, but they also kind of mill your opponent's deck as well. So it does kind of help just get rid of everything in their deck, you know. So next, I like to play triple copies of the last one here. Madura the Sword Oracle. Now, you can discard one other Earth Fairy monster, special summon this card from your hand. Then you can place one Gravekeeper's Trap from your deck face up in your spell and trap zone. So this is another reason why I like to play 3 of each of these, is because I want to maximize my ability to discard in order to special summon this card. It does really help when going into certain extra deck monsters in general. But then it also has the effect... quick effect, you can banish this card from your field at graveyard, then target up to 3 cards in any graveyards, or up to 5 if Exchange of the Spirit is on your field or in your graveyard. Shuffle them into the deck, and you can only use each effect once per turn. Really like this as the ability to shuffle, because of the fact that you will thin through your deck pretty fast, I would say. So it's really, really nice, and I really do like its ability to be able to... how do I want to word this? Be able to just shuffle your cards back in, so you have more ability to reuse your cards. Then next, I like to use Herald of the Orange Light. I have seen this pretty frequently. When your opponent activates a monster effect, quick effect, you can send this card and one other fairy monster from your hand to the graveyard, negate the activation. If you do, destroy it. It's a pretty good card. I believe it was recently just reprinted as well, or at least the reprint was announced if it wasn't actually reprinted yet. Really, really good. Again, if you feel like you want to switch this out for any other hand trap, yeah, that's the way to go for you. But I do like Herald of the Orange Light, and so that's specifically why I like to use it. Next, I like to use 2 copies of Diviner of the Earl. It lets you basically dump a fairy monster from the deck or the extra deck to the graveyard. And if you do increase this card's level by that monster's level, by the way, this is a tuner, by the way. So that's how we're going to go into Baron. So wanted to run this at 3, honestly, just because it does help facilitate all your plays and whatnot. Just one card by itself will pop off a lot of different combos, but I wanted to make room for some other cards, right? So that's why I ended up using this at 2. And then lastly, I wanted to play 1 copy of Shadow Beast. Basically, if this card is sent to the graveyard by a card effect, you can draw a card, so it does really help you get a little bit of draw support. Plus, you can use it in order to make Winda. Winda is really, really good if you're going first. It will completely shut your opponent down, so I do like that card. Next, so I played triple Prime Evil Planet Perlino, must have for this deck. I'm surprised they didn't limit this or semi-limit this or anything. Yeah, this card is insane, so make sure you have 3 of those for sure. And then I got the Terraforming to search it. I also like to play 2 copies of Tearlaments Scream. If a monster is normal and special summon and you control a Tearlaments monster or Visa Starfrost, except during the damage step, you can send the top 3 cards of your deck to the grave. Also, for the rest of this turn, all monsters your opponent control lose 500 attack. So the ability to mill, again, like we discussed, is really, really good. Let me go down a little bit. If this card is sent to the graveyard by a card effect, you can add 1 Tearlaments trap from your deck to your hand. You can only use each, so it does also search this thing right here. But I don't use that as much, obviously, because we only have 2 traps, right? But to be fair, we only have 2 spells as well, 2 of these. So, but I really do like the milling effect, which is like reason number 1 as to why I'm using it. Hopefully, I articulated that properly. Next, 1 copy of Foolish Burial. You can foolish a couple of different things in this deck, and it will pop off a lot of different combos. 1 copy of Instant Fusion. I don't know if I like this as much, but it does really help get out your Kid Kalos. Really, really good for that regard. But it is obviously it's limited to 1, so that's why I'm considering maybe cutting out for something. But don't get me wrong, I do like this card. I'm just considering maybe I should switch it out for something or other. 1 copy of Called by the Grave. This is just to get it around certain annoying hand traps for sure. 1 copy of the brand new Gravekeeper's Trap. While Exchange of Spirit is in your graveyard, your opponent cannot activate the effects of cards in the graveyard or special summon monsters from the graveyard. You can only use each of the following effects once per turn. During the main phase, you can discard 1 card, add 1 Gravekeeper's or Earth Fairy monster from your deck. Let me go this way so it doesn't. There we go. From your deck to your hand. During your opponent's draw phase, before the normal draw, if this card is already face up on the field, declare 1 name, look at any cards drawn from the normal card, and if it was a discarded card, send it to the grave. So it has a lot of different uses right here. This is crazy. I think it's a good one of. I didn't really try running it at 2 personally, but I think it worked really well at 1. So that's why I never tried bumping it up. But if you feel like, hey, maybe it might be better at 2. But if you run it at 2, I feel like you might have to run another copy of Exchange of Spirit. This card is specifically named on so many of the cards. I was thinking about running it at 2, but I was like, maybe not, right? Because there's nothing against this card, but I just feel like I wanted to run more copies of some of the other cards, and I didn't have the ability to do that. So that's why I have 1 and 1 of these. And then next 2 elements are 2 copies of Tearlaments Suliek. While you control Tearlaments monster or Visa Starfrost, you can target 1 effect monster your opponent controls, negate its effects, then send 1 monster you control to the graveyard. Negating, really, really good overall. So that's why I decided to run 2. Then send 1 monster you control to the graveyard. If this card is sent to the grave by a card effect, you can add a Tearlaments monster from your deck to your hand. So the ability to search as well, it's pretty good, I'd say. Overall, this is my main deck. It's what I like to use. There are we're gonna get into the side deck. It's not necessarily a side deck. It's just mostly these are shout outs of things like, hey, maybe this is worth checking out. This is worth trying out, right? So, but moving into the extra deck. So 2 copies of Kit Kalos, 1 copy of Root Kalos, and 1 copy of Kaleido Heart. Now, I feel like this is pretty standard. I have seen some variations where people will maybe play 3 of this, or they maybe play 2 and 2 of this, but I wanted to maybe experiment with a little bit more extra deck stuff, just get into some Xyz monsters, some Links, and even, hey, Baron, right? So, Next, Winda. We talked about this before. Winda's just insane. Each player can only special summon monsters once per turn while this card is on the field. If you go first and you bring this out, you have the ability to just shut your opponent down. So I really do like this card. Next, Drago Sapelia just takes a fusion monster plus a dark monster. Plus, like, I'm going to mention Super Poly later, but it is a pretty good Super Poly target. Next, we got Garura, the Wings of Resilient Life. Of course, it just takes 2 monsters of the same type and attribute, but different names. Plus, it gives you the ability to draw 1 card, and it does double damage, if I'm not mistaken. So, really good. We got ourselves Time Thief for Doer, number 41. Divine Arsenal AA Zeus, and Abyss Duel. Now, I really wanted to also try out Bahamut Shark, and since we're running Bahamut Shark, go into Totally Awesome. We do technically have the ability to do that. I just think it's not as consistent, the ability to do that, just because we're not running. This is the only water one, right? That's why I didn't do that. But I have seen some builds where that has worked successfully at my locals, so if you are interested in that, that might be a way to something to check out, right? So next, for the Link monsters, I like to play Copy Sprite Elf. I do think this is a pretty good card. This card is insane. Let me reword what I just said. It's not just a pretty good card. This card is insane. I would definitely recommend you play this card. 1 copy of Sprite Sprint. Now, I haven't tried this out as much. Like, I think it's only come up like, what, 3 or 4 times, but it's a pretty good card, I'd say, but just I haven't used it enough to where I'm going to comment on it and tell you whether or not it should be in there or not. That's what I'm going to say. I was running out of, or I had a blank spot, so I would just threw it in Appaloosa just because it has the ability to negate. But just think of this as whatever else you'd like. You can fill this in for that. And then 1 copy of Baron, just because we do run Diviner of the Herald, so it's a tuner, so you do have the ability to bring this out. Although I've only done it like once, just something to keep in mind. And then for some honorable mentions, some cards that may be worth looking into. Tearlaments Crime. When a spell trap card is activated or monster effect is activated while you control Tearlaments monster or Visa Starfrost, negate the activation if you do shuffle that card on the deck. Then send 1 monster from your hand to the graveyard. That's pretty good. That's all I'm going to say. It's a negate. Personally, I couldn't perfectly find the room for it. Maybe I can cut this to 1 and then throw this in there as well. But that will be stuff I play around with maybe a little bit later, you know. I've seen people run this next one. Eradicator Epidemic Virus. Tribute 1 dark monster with 2500 attack. Declare 1 type of card. Spell a trap, look at your opponent's hand, all spells/traps they control, and all cards they draw until the end of the 3rd turn after this card's activation. Destroy all cards. This card is insane and can single-handedly win your duels. But you need a little bit of proper setup, right? So that might be something to think about. Honestly, I've seen a lot of people use it, and I've seen it completely shut down decks, especially like cards that are heavily trap based. Like I was running Eldritch, and my guy pulled this out on me. This gets really annoying. Next, Super Poly. This is pretty self-explanatory. You do already have some Super Poly targets in there, but if you're going to be thinking about Super Poly, I'd probably recommend something like Mud Dragon of the Swamp as well, just so you can take full advantage of that card. Next are the danger cards. Now, I'll be honest with you guys. I saw a lot of danger stuff in there before the Ishizu stuff. Now that the Ishizu stuff is out, I'm not seeing too much of the danger stuff. And that's just me personally. It's possible people are still using it, and so that's why I wanted to give it like a shout out, because this package, the danger package, actually was doing really well within the Ishizus in general. Next we got King of the Swamp. Basically it works as a substitute for any cards, any 1 fusion material here. Plus it does also search you a poly. Technically you don't even use that, but I guess that's a plus. Next I wanted to mention the Bestial cards. These are really good. There's no denying it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. These cards are really good. I really wanted to fit a way to, or just find a way to put these in here, but I kind of like the ratios the way I had them, you know, so I didn't want to mess with any of this stuff. I really did like a lot of these cards at 3. Maybe I could cut this one to 2, and then maybe just mess around with a couple other cards, but I felt like if you're running Bestials, you want Magnamut, you want, what's the boss monster, Lubellion, right? If I'm not mistaken, that's what it's called. But I wanted to use kind of like the full package, but I feel like I would have to take out too much, you know. So I have seen people run partial packages of this though. So like 3 copies of Magnamut, and then 1 copy of the other card, and it works pretty well. And then 1 copy of Shaddoll Squamata next. I just wanted to throw this in there just because if this card is sent to the graveyard by a card effect, you can send a Shaddoll card from your deck to the graveyard. So it basically dumps this thing in there as quickly as possible. Therefore, you can in turn fuse and get out your copy of
Where is it? Winda out as quickly as possible. Works really, really well, honestly. And then lastly, Herald of the Green Light. If your opponent activates a spell card, you can send this card and one other fairy monster from your hand to the graveyard and negate the activation. If you do, destroy it. So pretty much everybody runs Herald of the Orange Light. I've almost never seen anyone run Green Light as much. Green Light is way cheaper though, so if you are in the mood to run for like a more budget style there, Green Light is the way to go. Plus, Green Light stops spells. So if you is it spells and traps? It's spells specifically, sorry. But a lot of decks are spell heavy. A lot of decks use like key spell cards, so it might be something worth looking into. But I would definitely say that Herald of the Orange Light may be better. At least in my opinion, it is better. It may or may not be true for everybody overall, you know, but that's just how I feel. If there are any other honorable mentions or any other cards that you guys use, you could definitely let me know in the comments down below. I'm always happy to hear about ways I can improve my deck. Ways, anything you would add or anything you would take out. Love to hear it in the comments down below. And this is PlotArmorCards, guys, signing out for the day. If you like what you see, don't hesitate to like, comment, and subscribe.
And we will see you in the next video.